and welcome to the HollyHood Zoomcast, episode 21. My name is Ajimanj, Asante, Goodman.
TJ Goodman.
Right.
Smallwood Worldwide.
I guess I'll go next.
Yo, what is why?
No, don't add enough to my name. They'll figure it out. You go, Jay.
I'm Jay.
Christ. What the hell?
It's ridiculous. All this announcing such.
And welcome to HollyHood. So, today we are going to do our movie review. A movie review of what? One of our brothers' goats. Oh, God. Where is that? Anyway, so one of our brothers' goats movies. Now, he has several GOAT movies, but we're going to let him go ahead and take the floor to introduce this movie. Jay, take it away.
All right, so it was my turn to pick a movie for the group, and I chose my favorite movie of all time, which is Apocalypse Now. For those that don't know what Apocalypse Now is, I apologize for you, and you've been your cinematic experience has been lacking, but it is a masterpiece, directed by Francis Ford Coppola, starring Martin Sheen and Marlon Brando, and it's a Vietnam War movie, but it's not a war movie, if that makes sense. There's a special mission that takes place during the Vietnam War, and it follows Captain Willard, who's played by Martin Sheen, as he goes on this journey, and it's an amazing experience. The long version is the best version, but you probably shouldn't watch that first because it is extreme. It's like 4 hours, I think it is. But you'll see, like it's just like, we'll get into it in the discussion. But I felt like the first time I saw it, it scared the shit out of me, and then when I saw it at an older age, I came to appreciate it for being a cinematic masterpiece. And then on a personal level, my father is a Vietnam veteran, so I felt like watching that movie kind of helped me connect with him a little bit in that respect, especially when they get to the Do Long Bridge, which is probably my favorite scene with the roach. But yeah, so that's Apocalypse Now.
Nice. So I'll go ahead and give my overview of the movie, which I thought it was unique. So I was one of the people who this was their first time watching it, although I'd heard about it a lot of times. One of my good friends, it was his favorite movie as well. So I was hyped to see the movie. There were several scenes in there. The overall movie, I don't have it as one of my GOATs. Me and Jason disagree all the time. I'm sure we'll be friends after. But in all seriousness, though, there were several scenes though that just were all timers though. At least to me, the one that's going to be probably something I'll mention later that stuck out to me was when Martin Sheen's character actually arrived at this place where the French were. And for people who don't know history, the French were the ones who colonized Vietnam, and that the Vietnamese originally fought them to get their independence. And then JFK was like, hey, we could help them out because they're the French and they're our friends. And then that's how we ended up getting over there. So it really, when that scene happened, I was like, wow, I think most people probably forgot that the French were there at first and then that they would stay there. But more importantly, it gave a really good idea of people who colonized, their mindset and how they think of things. Like the guys were like, this is our home. What do you mean, where are we going to go when it's over? This is where we are. This is where we belong. When we got here, there was nothing. And it was like, well, what are you talking about, Christopher Columbus? There's already people there. Anyway, but I thought that was a very interesting scene. There was a couple other scenes that were really interesting. Of course, Marlon Brando performance. One of the biggest drawbacks for me was actually, and I understand why they did it. It made perfect sense why they did it. But more Marlon Brando, and this would have been awesome. And Jay gave me some backstories and background stories on Marlon Brando himself, which he may or may not be able to get into. But I won't spoil it. If he doesn't get into it, then I can bring it up a little bit. But long story short, I mean, there was a lot of good things to take from this movie. One of the better war movies, even though it's not a war movie, that I've seen. So That's my overview of it. TJ.
Yeah, good summation so far. I gotta say, the version I saw was about 3 hours and change, and you're saying that wasn't the long one, huh? The 4-hour one? Know that?
There's more.
I wonder what I missed. But seriously, that 3 hours, it was a good 3 hours. It didn't really feel like it. I liked the perspective of the war movie, through the eyes of I guess he was a special forces kind of ranger, Captain Willard, and everything was classified. Martin Sheen, he must have changed as a person after doing this movie. He really captured the personality of those. I mean, I've had opportunity to interact with guys like that, and his personality was pretty close to it. He was kind of, drawn in. He was secretive. He was strong, and in any moment when something wasn't going quite like it should, like he just got no back down in him. He's got no BS in him. I remember when they made it to, I can't remember what the name of that place was, but they were just trying to get some fuel and stuff. This guy was giving him a hard time, and he just snatched them, pulled them from behind the counter, and the guy's like, "Oh yeah, I didn't know that's what it was. Okay, yeah, man, you get whatever you want. Let's give you these."
That whole scene was wild, where they had the chicks come out on the helicopter. Man, that whole thing was
out of control.
That was crazy. But I thought it was also a good depiction of war and most people's experience. They didn't really, like the main characters of the movie didn't really see like a whole ton of combat. They were riding around most of the time, and they were in danger all the time. They ended up shooting some innocent people that, because they were on edge, which, this kind of stuff happens very frequently, especially in, conflicts where there's a lot of guerrilla warfare type stuff going on. So I thought that was, it was a lot more realistic war movie than maybe it had been given credit for, because most people are not, in some kind of crazy shootout for hours and hours and days upon days. It's usually a lot of waiting in between, like a conflict. So I thought that was good. Marlon Brando, I agree. It would have been nice to have more of him, but I do like that they built up his persona so much that by the time you saw him, you're like, there he is, Colonel Kurtz. This is the man who, by the way, was I struggle with whether or not I think he's insane. I'm leaning on the side of no. I think he had a moment, and he was really, really spot on with his description of it. He had a moment of what I'll call clarity. I mean, it was a sick moment, but it altered him forever, and he could never go back. And I wish they would have, what I do wish that they would have examined further is his ability to draw people in. When Captain Willard got there, he didn't have that sit down moment where he's kind of pulled in a direction. Oh man, this guy really has, he's got some good views. He's got some good points. Maybe I should follow him. They didn't really, at least in the 3-hour version, maybe the 4-hour version, they do. In this one, it didn't really show any of that. I would have liked to have seen more of his ability to compel people to his side, because what he had going on there was crazy, he was like Pol Pot light or something. But generally speaking, I did enjoy the movie. I had forgotten what a good movie it was, because it had been such a long time since I had seen it. But I do agree with Jason. Theatrically, it was a masterpiece. The acting was really good, and seeing a young Lawrence Fishburne was something I had completely forgotten about.
Shout out to Clean, Mr. Clean.
Yeah, that was crazy.
Clean.
Yeah, that was even before the Cowboy Curtis days.
Yep.
Yeah, right.
All right.
Whoever's next before.
Yeah, Greg, go ahead, man.
Oh, I'm gonna make mine real quick. The only other movie I can equate it to, as far as style and acting ability and story stuff, it's like a war version of The Godfather. It's very well acted, very well put together, and it's not, like I said, it's not a whole lot of action, but there's still some, you know, it's an atmosphere of action, but there's not a lot of action. It's more of a dialogue movie, and most of the dialogue reigned and felt real. You know what I'm saying? It didn't feel like there was a script. It felt like these guys were just actually talking. And yeah, man, overall, it was, as far as artistry of film and movie making, it's one of the best I've ever seen. I mean, easily from an artist perspective. It's not my favorite war movie. It's number 2, just like Godfather is not my favorite gangster movie. It's number 2. My favorite gangster movie, we all know, is Goodfellas. But this is, I think this is more of a respectable, this is the most respectable war movie I've ever seen, as far as the level of acting, writing, and storytelling. It's up there. It's almost like what was I telling him? Because me and Audrey were talking about it. I said it's kind of like Saving Private Ryan, except it's more like Killing Private Ryan. They're just a guy going out there to find this guy and off him. You know what I'm saying? So it's just a journey, and you get to see all the things he runs into. It's a lot of mayhem and craziness that he bumps into. It's I said it tells a really good story, and it does with the dialogue. You get to feel like you start to know these people. You know, so everybody had their own real personality come through with each character. I said the one thing I do agree with everybody with is it would have been better if they had more Marlon Brando. I know they talked about all the stuff that they did. I would have liked to have seen him come to these moments and then take that whole place over and all that other stuff. And the other one, I forget the guy's name. The dude on Speed who lost his hand. What's the guy's real name?
The surfer?
No, not the surfer. The guy that was there, like Marlon Brando's lackey.
Oh, Dennis Hopper.
Dennis Hopper.
Yeah, I thought he did a great job too. He was.
I don't think he was
annoying. He was as annoying as any hippie I've ever met. So he did his job 100% right. He was really good.
Journalist, man. I'm gonna. Man, out of control. Man.
Yeah. He was way out of control. Everybody in that movie who had a part, they did such a magnificent job, as you can't really picture anyone else doing their roles in that movie. You can't say, oh, I can see such and such doing this. Everybody killed their role, and those roles are authentically theirs. The chef dude that was a pervert, he was great. Yeah, he was hilarious. I wonder what happened to that dude. I haven't seen him in anything since this.
Mm-mm. Wasn't he? Was he the one on Falling Down?
No.
The one that owned the store. The store
Yeah.
owner?
Yeah.
That might have been him.
Might have been. Yeah. And not to mention
Potential.
Yeah, let's not breeze past the role that Robert Duvall did on this movie. Amazing.
Excellent.
Amazing. I wish there was more of him. That guy was amazing for the 10 minutes that he was in there. Killed it.
Yo, when he was trying to find that surfboard and he kept that.
Yeah.
Yo, that was ridiculous.
He was
Right, they're getting
about
attacked,
that
and he's worried about that damn surfboard.
Exactly.
You know how much this cost? Did you know that?
That man was like, just wait for it to clear up, and you can go out there and surf. Man,
Just 20 more minutes.
Crazy, man.
I was like, yo, man, you gotta chill. But yeah, that dude right there, I would have liked to see a whole other movie about him. Just that character alone. That you talk about balls and still bombs going off. He's the only one not looking nervous. He out there, chest naked with the big hat on. He was dope in that movie. And plus, one of the most quotable lines in Hollywood history, like 2 or 3 actually, came from this movie, and his was one of them. That I love the smell of napalm in the morning.
Yeah.
Oh, that dun 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 dun, all that stuff. Yeah, amazing.
Yeah,
but yeah, it's definitely it's one of the greatest movies, probably the greatest war movie ever made.
Some people that I work with used to say that all the time, which I thought was strange. Anyway, Antwon, go ahead.
No doubt, I keep it real short. I think that this movie is a masterpiece of madness, right? So I think it's probably top 2, and it might not be 2 greatest movies ever made. The cinematography, the sound, the scoring of the film, the characters, all memorable, the quotables, the scene that they paint, and I call it the madness because most war movies paint the atrocities with like gore, right? A lot of killings. Here, this was all in the mind, right? So it felt like a mental trip. Like you're going on with each character, and like Kilgore was just talking about with Duvall being lost in the world, and you're literally at war, and his concern is about surfing. And even in the thing he's talking about, yeah, listen to the music, this is great. And it's like they're all creating a reality for themselves in order for them to survive, right? And so by the time you get to like Marlon Brando's Kurtz, and I know Marlon Brando had some personal problems at that time, which why we didn't get to see much of him or what have you, but it was like, it was still incredible the way they were able to bring him in and now paint more mystery around him. Like everybody else, I would love to have seen more of how he got great command of the people around him and communicated with them, what made him a draw. Willard was a madman willing to take this mission that was confidential, as he just keeps telling everybody, as everybody's losing their life around him. And then they get to these various like checkpoints, like the dinner, and you get the thing with the French. And one of my favorite characters was the lady talking about there's 2 you or something like that. And, you know, it was like a slow seduction of the mind, but she's trying to, you know, open up and see where he's at as well. It was like a crazy scene and whole. And at the same time, everybody at the dinner, it's more madness in terms of argument and who's right and whose perspective, right? And it's like, what do you buy into at that point? Whose reality is the real reality? It's a cinematic masterpiece, man. Listen, I'm grateful to be able to go back and revisit this movie, but it's just, there's so many levels to it. And for a movie shot before the 80s, it's incredible to see the colors, the use of a lot of the symbolism, and seeing how unified the folks were once they did get to Cambodia. And it's just, even at the end of the movie where Willard is leaving, the people are like, I think they were sitting down their weapons or whatever. They were ready to basically bow to him, and he's going to be the new one. And he's just like, nah. So it's a great, great film on so many levels that I could discuss this movie for hours, but it's 10 out of 10 for me. It's amazing.
We don't have time for hours, so I'm going to let Jason, who has to actually run. Go ahead, man, before you run, and we'll get into the rest of it for you, and you can, you know, write in and do whatever you got to do. But before you run, we do need your HollyHood score for this movie. Even though it's your GOAT movie, it's not necessarily a 10 automatic or 5 stars automatically. So go ahead, Jason, what's your rating?
Yeah. And first of all, I appreciate y'all taking the time to watch this movie. And I'm kind of like, I feel like some type of pride that we all love it, because, you know, it's hard for like your favorite movie for everybody to like it. This might be the first one other than like the Dark Knight trilogy that we all love.
Well, and Devil's Advocate, of course.
but Terminator. My score is a 5 out of 5, 10 out of 10, whichever rating you're going to use. I think it's a perfect movie, and it's one of the best I've ever seen, if not the best. And yeah, I have to take some time between watching it. It's not one of those movies that I watch every time it's on, because it's so long and because it's so layered and because it's so draining. Like every few years I might revisit it, but yeah, it's as perfect as a film can be that I've ever seen. And so I give it all the scores. And the other, what'd you say? Well, I have to say my favorite character or favorite scene or something?
Yeah, so there's like, we're going to go over the favorite characters, worst characters, favorite scene, least favorite scene, but yeah.
All right, so my least favorite scene is when Clean dies, because it is fucking depressing. And they got his mom reading the tape. Like, it is one of the saddest things I've ever seen in a movie ever. My favorite scene is when they get to the I think it's the Dolong Bridge with when they're looking for the roach, and it's like it's sad, it's angering, but it also is, you see these brothers, it's like it was just maybe it just represents like the black male experience, because it was like just seeing all them together, like even little stuff like when he was like when Lance was walking and dude was like, hey, goddamn it, you stepped on my face. He's like, oh, I thought you were dead. Well, you thought wrong, damn it. Like little shit like that. And then when dude was shooting it, and you heard the soldier in the background kept talking shit. They're like, go get the roach, nigga. Then the roach pops up. Like that whole sequence, like it was just like a beautiful mess. Like everything about it, like I said, it was mad when you think about the black male experience and the black man in America in war at that time. And like I said, my dad was part of that too. So it's like, it makes you feel kind of nasty, but then when you see them together, and it's like, I don't know, it's mixed feelings, but I think that's what I appreciate about that scene so much.
Yeah, it's like an angry sense of pride.
Yeah, exactly.
Yo, my man who was smoked out though, who came over, who was like dropping dimes with the RPG or whatever.
Yeah, roach. That was the roach. Our man came up. Dude was shooting for hours probably at that same soldier talking shit. Fuck you, Vietnam. Fuck you, GI. Kept shooting. Nothing. Dude kept talking shit. Roach came up. Bloop, and that was it. Like it was nothing. Oh man, that shit was great. And then he was like, hey, who's the commanding officer here? And he was like,
I thought it was you.
Thought it was you. Oh man, like that's my favorite scene. And other than the obvious, Willard and Kurtz and Clean, like I think the Roach is my favorite character just from that small scene. It's his presence. He has such a big presence for such a small scene. So yeah, that's it. I gotta run.
Yeah, man.
Appreciate y'all. I'll catch y'all on the next episode. Thank you.
Okay, now that you're off of here, we're gonna say what we really feel about this.
That shit was trash. Jason is fired.
Yo,
all right,
Peace.
So, as Jason kind of gave us a good overlay, but let's go back and revisit it from our perspective as far as favorite parts, worst parts. Antwon, you go ahead and go first with your favorite part and worst part.
Worst part is the death of Lawrence Fishburne's character because of the thing with the mom and what have you. Like I had to rewind in a minute to make sure I was hearing what I was hearing, but it was so beautifully done, but it was heart-wrenching. My favorite part is so I struggle between Kilgore with the surfing scene, and they're trying to like get him to wait for the last 20 minutes to the napalm flares, and he's trying to explain the waves, and the surf kid, he's like, yeah. But when they get to the boat, he's like, oh, yeah, I want to get out of here. He runs and dives in the boat and shit. So that's one of my favorite scenes. My second favorite scene, and I couldn't decide between the two, is the argument at the dinner, where it just felt like they were in a different world. Like I thought that was very insightful and indicative of the times and actually the movie itself, just a madness on perspective, who's right, who's wrong, what is actually real versus what isn't. And so it's an amazing scene. I don't want to take away in case somebody has that as their favorite scene and wants to go deep into that one, but the that and the surfboard thing, most definitely.
Greg.
My favorite scene was probably the one where they were going out there looking. I forgot what they were looking for, but anyway, the tiger came out there.
Oh yeah.
And when he ran back on that boat and he was freaking the fuck out and everything else, I was like, that might have been a real tiger. That might not have actually been. That might not have been supposed to happen. I'll put it like this: it was so genuine. His fear when he did that, he was spazzing and crying and everything else, and they had to get him together. But I like that scene because, to me, it might be the most realistic scene. I don't know if you guys have ever been in any kind of well, you probably haven't. Any kind of situations where you're in a combat zone, but you get freaked out by something that's not combat-y at all. Like it's just some unexpected. It's not an enemy. It's just the elements of just bitch on your ass. You know what I'm saying? It scares the shit out of you. I've been a couple places. I don't know if you guys are familiar with camel spiders. That's all I'm gonna say.
Our boys in North Africa are familiar.
But they're terrifying, and it kind of reminded me of something like that happened when I was over at in the Middle East. Just But anyway, that was one of my favorite scenes because it was unnecessary but necessary. It didn't have to be there. My least.
What kind of alien shit is this?
Yeah.
Camel spider? This doesn't even look real. This looks like something.
They're enormous.
This looks like something out of Alien. Like
it's like the hand on was the Addams Family or whatever.
Yeah.
They are enormous spiders. It's the biggest spider I've ever seen in my life. And
that's what roll up.
To have one of those come across you.
Wait a second.
And you don't know what it is. It's like holy.
Are we talking about it's bigger than basement spiders? Or are we talking about like Starship Trooper type?
This looks like Starship Troopers.
This is some Starship Troopers level. I'll put it to you like this. If you step on it, you're gonna mess up your sneakers. Like if you stomp it out, you gotta get new laces. Like it's that big. It's almost like an 8-legged hamster. It's it's a giant spider. It doesn't look real.
Yo, are these venomous or anything? Can they kill or?
No, he can't. No, he can't. No, we can't derail the show. Hey, come on, Greg.
I'll just tell you what it does. Like the reason why they're called camel spiders is they'll crawl up underneath the belly of a camel, and then they'll just eat the camel alive, and because the camel can't get to it because it's on his belly, so they'll just stay under there and eat it.
Hey, you're derailing the show. What are you doing?
Anyway, point.
Yeah.
My least favorite scene, and it's not my least favorite scene because it's a bad scene. It's an amazing scene, and that's the one where they're at the table when they went to the dinner and they were talking to the French in the way that the French were behaving about. I'll put it to you like this: the level of white privilege was alarming in that scene. It was something where I was just like, it was almost like I wanted to give like a grown man cuss out. Like, where do you get off? Like one of those. How dare you? Like like a grown man, like a church cuss, like a church cuss out. Like I wanted to give one of those. But that I'm not gonna go too deep into that because I know someone else is gonna have the scene probably. But it was a very alarming and eye-opening look into how I'll say this: how the West looks at the world. You know what I'm saying? It was like, man, it's outrageous to have that level of bullying you. You know what I'm saying? It's like it's a level of bully that I've never seen. They just came here and then was upset about having to leave a place that they weren't supposed to be in the first place. Like, with that being a possibility. And the way that they carried it, like they had all the rights and no one had any other. It is literally it is all about us and that is it. Kind of mentality.
It was out of nothing, right? So.
Yeah.
That's what it is. Yeah.
I said it was eye opening and it was alarming and it reigned so true to the mentality of what we're seeing going on in this country today. Like I took that scene and I could, to this day. I took that scene and I can relate it to what's going on right now. You know what I'm saying? It was some real January 6th insider type mentality, yo. But anyway, that's my little spiel. I say it's not my least favorite scene based on what it was. It was brilliantly acted. It's my least favorite scene because of what it made me feel during that time.
TJ.
All
right, favorite scene I already talked about a little bit. It's when Captain Wheeler jacked that dude up, and I don't know what that station is, but it just kind of what was really realistic, and I guess maybe it can be a little bit shocking as well, was how disorganized things were. Like everywhere you go, it's like the commanding officer's dead. It's just complete disarray. These guys are going upriver. They stop somewhere to try to get fuel. And as you know, if you saw the movie, Captain Willard is in it's on a classified mission. He's just trying to get there, get his stuff, and get out. And he's running into the red tape and all the baloney, and he's got his guys trying to do for him, so he doesn't have to go there and kind of reveal anything he's not supposed to. And it's just not working. It's just the guy's like, hey, sorry, man, no can do. You got to tell me what it's for. So he goes over and tries to say, hey, these are my guys. They're with me. Just give us a fuel, right? Guy makes some comment. I don't think he got all the way through it. Captain Willard reached across there and literally drug him out with one arm. And the guy was so shocked at what he experienced, he just kind of gave it up, including the tickets that we talked about to the show. But the part of the reason why I like that scene is because, Captain Willard is supposed to be this, he's supposed to be, this special forces ranger type dude. And you can see that he's kind of got steely nerves and everything, but you don't really get a chance to see what he can do. And in this scene, it was like he didn't have to rough the guy up too much. Just the way that he grabbed him and jerked him, you knew that this guy he means business. He's serious. So that was one of my favorite scenes. You guys laid out some really good other scenes as far as like, that one kind of made me feel bad, especially the one with dude dying with his mother's voice playing on that tape.
That was tough.
It was. I'm gonna go with some of the Vietnamese dying, those innocent people in the boat.
Yeah.
I thought that was really disturbing, man. Like, they didn't have to go over there and harass them. The guy running the boat was like, "No, we got to do it." And then, of course, I don't want to say it wasn't about anybody's temper. It's more about being antsy. You don't know whether or not they have and don't have. So he just opens fire and just wastes.
Didn't one of the ladies run into the helicopter with a grenade and blew it up?
It did, yeah. It was, yeah. So I mean, that's the thing. You never know what you're gonna run into, which is part of the reason why Captain Willard was like, "Look, we're doing something important. Just that's not as important as what we're doing."
Fog of war.
Yeah. And they went over and did it anyway. It turns out that they didn't have anything, and then they were gonna try to, make it all right by taking the lady who had probably been shot 4 or 5 times with a, Vietnam equivalent of a Gatling gun. I don't remember what kind of gun it was, but she probably wouldn't have made it to the hospital anyway.
No.
But I found that, to be a little, to be disturbing, because that there's just, if you get a chance to read any real historical accounts about just about any war, this kind of stuff happens all the time. And I thought they did a good job of portraying it, but it was tough to watch, one of the tougher scenes to watch. So that's me. That's good and bad end. So I think you're up now.
Yeah, I'm up, man, and I definitely. I mean, a lot of the scenes that really stood out to me, they definitely were already mentioned in a way, but I can go into some detail about them. That was the second worst scene. Like, as far as like when Greg was saying like the feeling that he had. As far as the feeling goes, that definitely was the way that one went, as far as making me feel the worst. But the worst scene, actually, to me, the worst part of the movie was when the guy who was running the rotary ship, when he got killed by a spear. Because that had racial connotations to it, and it was like, you're gonna die in Vietnam and you're gonna get killed by a spear, and it's like at a point where you weren't supposed to. And I just didn't. I mean, like that. My biggest criticism, outside of the overwhelming chaos, which was just everywhere, like there was never anybody doing anything they were supposed to be doing. Criticism, they weren't like, at all, right? But my biggest criticism of the movie was kind of like how much they went hard for Willard, not knowing what he was doing, and like how hard they would go as far as how far they were willing to go to help him out. Thought that was just really strange. But that was the worst scene to me, because he seemed to be the only guy that was that seemed to have any scruples about him. Was the guy who was actually leading that boat. He was the only person who wasn't he was just there. He's like, hey man, we're here to do a job. I'm gonna do this job, and that's just pretty much what it is and what it ain't. And that was like, he was the only guy who I thought was a decent guy on the whole thing. Not even Clean's punk ass was completely decent to me. Like he is, and he was the one who opened fire on that thing. Although, like I said, that is a dicey proposition. Now, my favorite part on the movie was, and it's my favorite part because of the worldwide connotations of it. In terms of the dinner party when the French got him. Like I said, like I'm a historian by trade, so to speak, or a fake historian, I should say. But it was just, to me, what made that scene so fantastic was you rarely get to hear from the mouth of a colonizer in their own words how they feel about the lands that they conquer, and how they view the people that they conquer. Like I mean, everything about it was totally talked of how they had a hold of this nation that was not theirs. Even the people they were teaching the people who were there French, right? The servants who were Vietnamese were French, and they were of a certain way. People were like, man, I haven't had food like this in years, you know? Like, you know, they made the people, and then they acted as if the people who were there originally weren't the real people of Vietnam. They were like, what's Vietnam? This is French whatever, right? French Polynesia or whatever, you know, whatever they want to call it, you know. And it was just, it was such a disgusting display of privilege and power, and what it meant in that, especially in that era when everybody was going for their independence, and how much that shook up the world and how much that shook up everything. And then not only that, the denial of losing by some of them. Not only that, but then you have to take a step back and say, oh, the United States was there too. And then it's like, not only were they there, but why they were there was to help another nation that is seen relevantly as mostly white, a white, quote unquote, Western nation, to stay in power there, so that could be perpetuated along, and they could get whatever they wanted to from this, you know, mostly brown, yellow, indigenous place, you know. It was a real nutshell of it, and I thought it was fantastic as far as the way it was written. But I also thought that that it was real preachy as well. I thought that it was you could tell that, like, at least to me, you could tell this was written after the war was over, because I felt like some of the clarity that they had was stuff that you could only say after the fact. I don't think that people felt exactly like that in the moment, but it was a great scene. It was a scene, like I said, you rarely come across, and that's when you get to hear the people who colonize these places, like how they truly feel about these places once they're there. On to favorite characters, worst characters. We'll start with Greg. Greg, favorite and worst characters.
Oh, come on, man. You know who my favorite character is. Duval, man. He killed that joint. I said, for someone who was only in about 10 to 15 minutes of a movie for 3.5 hours, his impact has stood the test of time. You know what I'm saying? Just the few lines that he had are super quotable. So he's by far my favorite character. He gave me the sense that he was built for that. He was just straight built to be in that war, to do those things. I've never seen somebody so comfortable amongst gunfire. Like,
it seemed unnatural.
It did not seem normal. He's my favorite character by far. My least favorite character was the surfer dude. That guy was worthless. He was bum.
And he survived.
Of course he survives, because he's bum.
Jeez.
He's my least favorite. I don't remember anything that he really said. I just remember him being there and looking stupid most of the movie. So
yeah, that makes perfect. TJ, best character, worst character. Go.
All right, best. I'm going with the main character. I'm going with Willard. Martin Sheen I see why he was a big deal. I mean, he dug pretty deep for this. I mean, his character, the depth of his character, because you saw what a mess he was when he wasn't over there fighting. He was just a complete mess. I mean,
oh yeah, it started off horrible. Just butt naked, drunk in a hotel room.
Yeah, punching mirrors, and he was just no good at all.
And what I found crazy was that this shit just told me what chaos I was in for. When they came and got him, I was like, okay, well, you know, he's probably suitable for the job. I was like, what?
What over him in the shower, just turn it on. Let's go.
Yeah, just throw his ass in the shower.
But you know, it's often the case when somebody's as good as he was professed to be at what he was, that you struggle when you're not in that world. That like the regular world, the real world, I'll say, doesn't make sense to you. Doesn't make as much sense. And he was just dying to get back over there just to have some purpose in his life. You know, he basically, it sounded like he threw away his marriage and everything just to be over there and carry out another mission.
Hey, he's like Tom Brady without the money.
Yeah, kind of.
No.
Kind of.
With the rail in the show with your Tom Brady talk. All right, go ahead.
But you know, he had the guy's dossier. You know, he was reading it the whole time. You know, and I liked the amount of insight that his character gave into Kurt's. You know, his based on Willard's own experience and what he feels about his country, his job, his the way that he broke down his feelings about Kurt's. I thought it was really added a lot to the movie. And his character, I thought, was good. He was he was strong, he was honest, and in the end he carried out his duties. I mean, it was going into the movie, you would think that he would be one of the people that would get sucked in and end up being on that guy's team, just based on the mess he was outside of his job. But you were gonna say something?
Yeah, no, as a person who hadn't seen the movie, I was shocked that he kind of he was pretty business when he got there.
Yeah. So he was my favorite character. You know, I thought he did a great job with the acting. It was his depth of character. They developed it really well, I thought. Mm-hmm. My least favorite character, you guys probably liked, was it Dennis Hopper? Was that the one who played?
Yeah.
Man,
he was
I wanted somebody to chop his head off, man. That little growl sycophant. Couldn't stand him, man. It's like, yeah, okay, I get it. The guy Kurtz, he's a bad dude. I get it, but come on, man.
You don't see it the way he sees it, man. You don't understand like what he's saying, man. You understand? You gotta see it.
The kid is in the middle of life. I mean, whatever. Yeah. I don't want to hear that crap.
Like I agree. I would have picked him.
He doesn't talk with words, man. He talks with feelings and faces with words. And then when he speaks, it's wow, what a musical.
He reads poetry out loud. He reads poetry out loud, man.
Yo-yos.
Yeah.
He does not know when to stop talking.
No.
I'm surprised that guy even kept him alive, to be honest with you.
Yeah, that's why it wasn't about worst characters, because he was so believable in his horseshit. He was the most annoying, but he was so good. And he did an amazing job playing that character.
The acting was great, but the character...
Yeah, he killed that jump.
If this was a person that I knew, I couldn't spend any time around. I mean, he just doesn't know. Shut up, man. I wanted to slap him from the moment he was on the scene.
What you don't understand is how to be silent within the moment, man. Within the moment, in the moment, man. You got to be able to talk and be silent at the same time, in the moment, with the moment.
I wanted him dead. Anyway, that's my best and worst right there.
Antwon.
Indeed. So, worst character, TJ, for everything that he just said. Not TJ, but character. Let me roll that back. The worst character is the same character that TJ highlighted, Dennis Hopper, the war journalist, photographer. I don't need to say any more than that. He highlighted it expertly, my feelings. He's just annoying, excellent in what he did. I still don't think Dennis Hopper was acting, but guess what? That's what made it great. My best character, I'm kind of torn between Roxanne, the lady with the 2 U's, and also Willard, because Willard was a madman willing to take on a journey, battling his own demons, and also curious enough to go through this and see it through, which was insane because a lot of people would have tapped out early on. And it was almost like this is why I love the movie so much. It was like a perfect balance of Act 1, Act 2, Act 3, right? The arrival and him there with Kilgore on the beach, and, you know, the way he was able to just kind of navigate around that, right? If you notice, because I think he's a commanding officer as well, if I'm not mistaken, Willard, right? Am I wrong? Give or take. So, but he kind of played second fiddle to Kilgore on that beach, and I thought that was probably the best part of the movie for me, was seeing how Kilgore's just kind of entrenched in the war, and he has one moment of clarity that comes out where he's like, you know, someday this war is going to end, and he says it, but you know that he doesn't quite believe it, right? And I felt like it was such a great metaphor, and you see everybody else around him kind of not really react, but they gave a reaction. The non-reaction was enough to tell that, look, you know, everything is about perspective. And so when you see Willard navigating that world as a character and as an actor, it was fantastic because there's giving and taking in that, right? And so the greatest gift he did was to just kind of lay back, and you forgot he was in some of those scenes with Kilgore until you like really look up and realize he's there right next to him. And it's amazing. And seeing his transition of thoughts that by the time he goes from Act 2 to the final act, and by that time Fishburne is killed, he realized that everybody's dying, and it's almost like, what was this all for, you know? But he still sees through the mission. Like I said, it's great. It's great. So those are my two. I don't know if I even made any sense. See, I got infected with the movie. And then I'm like,
since man, you had this stuff like
who was the best actor again? I don't know. Yeah.
No, it all joined together, man. It was like peanut butter and jelly. I mean, he reads poetry out loud. In spite of saying all that, I don't have him as my worst character. I'll go with my favorite character first, and that is the man, the myth, the legend, Marlon Brando. Brando, he was my favorite character. He was my favorite character easily. I just
easily. Wow.
Easily. The horror. Like, that alone, I was like, yo. But I know that there was a lot of problems in the background with Marlon Brando, and that he couldn't memorize his lines, and that he came in overweight. But I tell you right now, the things that he was able to do with the scenes that he had, he stole the whole movie. A 3-hour movie, he was in there for 20 minutes. He stole the entire thing. Go ahead, Greg.
And let me say something else. Even the part about him coming in overweight and everything else.
He looked dope.
That added to the baseline of what this man was supposed to be. For him to be an overweight 38-year-old man and make it through that special forces training lets you know the mentality of what he was in this movie. So I think him being a little chubby adds to the legend of how amazing this guy was as a soldier. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, you're good, man. But I love the not just because I got it, but the ball cut made him look super intimidating. The way that they used the shadows, super intimidating. The way he dressed, the way he walked, super intimidating. Like you wake up and you see your friend's head in a basket. Like it's just like, you know what I'm saying? Like this guy, and then not only that, but it was the part where they would, like TJ had said this and laid this out really well, how Willard was reading what this guy was and his philosophies throughout the movie. So it was almost as if he was throughout the movie, but you didn't get a chance to see him. They built him up. Then you finally got a chance to see him, and he came off as a cultish, devilish, kind of like James Earl Jones and Conan the Barbarian type of cultish type of personality. And it was really, really good how they did it. But not only that, but like TJ had mentioned this before, and we were saying this right before it started. It's like, I don't think he was insane. I think he was extreme in his tactics, but I didn't think he was insane. Like I thought, like one of the scenes that stuck out to me the most. This was another scene that I could have had as my favorite scene, was when he was describing when they were going through inoculating all the kids, and how the men would go through because they didn't trust what they were giving them, and they were chopping kids' arms off. And he was like, that's when he was like, yo, if we just had a tenth of that, we could have ended this war a long time ago. And he's not wrong. I mean, that's an extreme case, but he saw that differently. Like he saw that he analyzed the situation for what it was, not what it should be. And I felt like a lot of his commanding officers were analyzing it for what they wanted it to be and not what it was. And he was like, no, this is what we would have to do. And they were like, well, that's a war crime. He was like, well, I'm out of here. So yeah, go ahead, TJ. I'm sorry.
That's the moment of clarity I was talking about.
Yeah.
Right
but he was willing to go that extra mile if he had to. And it came off as being psychotic to others. And I mean, his actions, like I said, they were extreme. But I think that what he saw, he was like, in order to win something, in order to do something that was, as I said before, the movie was complete chaos, you have to be extreme in order to do it. If you're not going to be extreme, then you shouldn't be there. And that's something I always agree with. My least favorite character was Chef. He was a dirtbag. Yeah, he's a dirtbag, Miss January or Miss May or whatever. I thought that was another scene that unfortunately made it to where it wasn't probably as highly rated as it should be for me. I just thought the idea of them having those showgirls in such peril over there. It was like, jumping on a helicopter when they were trying to get away, and then they found them like in this weird abandoned Jeep. I was like, well, what are the chances? Anyway, but yeah, like I didn't like that guy. Long story short, I didn't like him. I liked him at first, which maybe made it even worse. And then he sucked more and more as the movie went on. Kind of like almost everybody on that boat, with the exception of I felt like the guy who was leading the boat. Their characters sucked more as the stuff went on. Clean started to suck a little bit more, and it was unfortunate how he died. The surfer guy started to suck more and more and more. And Chef
was the pits.
Yeah, Chef was right there with him in my case. Not Raekwon the Chef, just Chef. You know what I mean? So that was that. So now we've reached it. We reached the pinnacle of the episode, and we will be getting into everybody's review scores for the HollyHood rating. Now we'll start with TJ, then we'll go to Antwon, then we'll go to me, and then Greg will end us. So TJ, you go ahead and go first.
All right, I know we're running low on time, gentlemen. I'll make this quick. I think I had said before how much I respect the acting job that everybody did in this movie. I respected the vantage point that it was done from. I liked the realism of the war itself. They touched on a lot of things that rang very true. I think that this movie was exactly what was envisioned by the people that created this movie, and that's a pretty rare thing. The only thing that I would have liked to see more of, like I said before, was just more of the Marlon Brando, his what he was able to say to these people to get them to follow him. I would have really liked to have seen a little more of that. Because of that, I am going to 4.75. Can't give it all the way 5 because it had just left me with just a little bit that I wanted, but it was a great movie. Great movie.
Antwon.
Most Duff. 5 out of 5. I thought it was incredible. Everything about it as a film is everything you want your movie to be. Memorable characters, great dialogue, scenes that spark emotion in all types. No matter how you feel about it, it gave you something. And just a story that at the end, like all great art, it sparks a debate. It didn't really need an explanation. Like, you saw the madness, you saw the weird perspectives, you saw a lot of controversial things, you saw people immersed in a world that no rational human being technically should be that invested in, and it's an all-time great, and some of the characters alone, you could create a movie about them. They could have a spinoff if they wanted to at that time. That's how, and I'm not sure at the time when this was released if they knew how great it would be, but you literally, like, I think it was Greg or TJ that mentioned Kilgore earlier. I would love to see a whole movie with Kilgore. Like, just it, and I think he would totally get everybody killed, but it was just one of those things that he was captive.
Everyone's going home in the sack. Everyone's going home in the sack.
But how you get there, boy, would it be a ride. But for me, it's 5 out of 5. I'll move it on.
All right, it's my turn. I'm gonna be honest with you. After my initial watch, I had it trending at about like a 3.75. There's some things I didn't like. The movie was incredibly long. It was super chaotic. I was just like, yo, this is unrealistically chaotic. It's so crazy. It's insane. I was like, yo, there's too much stuff going on here. It's so insane. But the more that I've listened to everybody, and the more that I thought back on the movie, and maybe this is the signs of it being such a great movie, is that the more you sit with it, the better that it gets. Like the more that I've sat with it, the better it's gotten in my view. And I've bumped it up some. I'm going to go ahead and give it a 4. And I know that if Marlon Brando was here today and he's heard that I gave it a 4, he would be like, the horror. One of the illest lines I've ever heard on a movie. That was crazy. The horror. Anyway, no, I'm giving it a 4. It was an excellent movie. It's not my GOAT, but it is a GOAT. Put it that way. Greg, you go ahead and you can finish this off there.
Just based on the only real criticism I have of the movie is that it's long as 2 movies. Like it's like they had the original and the sequel and they just merged it all together. So it's just a really long movie. Outside of that, I really have no complaints about it. It is almost a perfect movie. It is real close. Like I said, it's like the Godfather of war movies, man. The lowest I could even possibly give this movie is a 4.9. That's the lowest I could go with it. So it's either a 5 or a 4.9. You know what? It's a 4.9 because it is super long. That's the only reason it loses a little digit.
Even when you watch the super long versions,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No,
I was just saying I agree with you on that, because even when you watch the super extended versions,
yeah,
I don't think they needed it. It didn't need to be this long. That's the only thing. If I had to give like negative feedback, so I agree with you.
Yeah, I mean, but outside of that, man, it's I said every single person in the movie was impactful. Every single person. So crazy storyline. I don't know if there's been a movie kind of with that kind of storyline before, but I know there's been many after it. You know what I'm saying? That have had a similar storyline. It's the textbook movie for non-movies. It's the one. So yeah, I gotta give it a 4.9, man. The only reason you don't get 5 stars is because I had to take a break while watching it, and I shouldn't have to do that to watch a good movie. I shouldn't have to call time out.
Yeah, the intermission joint flashed up. But
look, I'll tell you how long this movie was. I used the bathroom before it started, and I had to take a deuce before it ended.
All right, that's how long. We'd like to welcome everybody. Thanks everybody for watching. Thanks everybody for tuning in. Next time we're gonna do something that you've never seen on a movie show or podcast or Zoomcast. What is that? You're gonna have to wait, sucker. And if you can't wait, there's always work at the post office.